Easter is not pagan. I said what I said, and I'm going to prove it. We've already debunked the notion of Easter being pagan and coming from Ishtar in previous videos. So today on our heresy hit list, we're going to provide overwhelming evidence that Easter doesn't come from Eostre either. In fact, she's just a one-hit wonder. Let's go. Now, why do I say a one-hit wonder? Because the only ancient reference for Eostre comes from the Venerable Bede, a monk writing in the 725 AD. In his book, The Reckoning of Time, he says that the Anglo-Saxons once had a month named Yerstomonath, allegedly named after a goddess named Eostre. But that's it. One sentence. There are no temples. There are no inscriptions. There are no songs. There are no statues. There are no stories. There is no ancient evidence anywhere on the planet that anyone ever worshipped her. That's like hearing a guy say, yo, I think there's a rapper named Lil Equinox, and then the internet running with it like he dropped a Grammy album. Just one mention, but no receipts. With Ishtar, at least we had archaeological evidence for her existence. But for Eostre, listen, fam, there's nothing. And if you're operating in intellectual honesty, that has to be suspect. Believing that she was a goddess worshipped by tons of people, but there's not a single piece of evidence for her existence outside of a single mention by Bede? And it gets worse, family, because Bede wasn't a reliable source in this matter. Consider that even Bede himself used words like "we suspect" when referring to other festivals like Mondrianek. Simpson and Roud point out in the Dictionary of English Folklore that since there is no other mention of her in any of the other numerous sources of information of Germanic heathenism, that Bede or his informants created the goddess by speculative back formation from a pre-existing and perplexing name for a season. What's worse than all of that is that also the mention that the goddess Hereda, whom he gives as the explanation for the name of March or Red Monath, is equally unconfirmed by other sources. So Bede wasn't writing history based on sources, he was making educated guesses. Even the New World Encyclopedia website has stated that some scholars have suggested that a lack of supporting documentation for this goddess might indicate that Bede assumed her existence based on the name of the month. Listen, fam, modern scholars have done the homework, and the consensus is clear. Eostre probably did not exist. And here's what experts like Michael Haken and others suggest that Bede may have invented the goddess. And Faith Willis, in her commentary on Bede's work, she stated that Bede himself points out that the word Eostre no longer denoted either a month or a goddess for the English, but rather the Christian feast of Easter. Again, there are no carvings, no altars, no legends, and no archaeological remains of any worship of Eostre. Even the supposed connection between her and rabbits and eggs, completely made up later. No ancient source ever links Eostre with a bunny or an egg basket. Scholars believe that Bede invented her, or his informants did, by trying to explain a seasonal name using mythology. It's like saying April must be named after the goddess Aprilia, or selfies and brunch. This is what scholars call back formation, when people invent a character to explain a word that they didn't understand. That's not evidence, that's guesswork. So let's talk linguistics. Eostre is tied to a word that means dawn, east, or rising sun. That Indo-European root gives us words like aurora in Latin, Ios in Greek, or Eusas in Sanskrit. So Eostre might not have been a goddess at all, just an old poetic word for springtime or sunrise, kind of like how we say Mother Nature or Father Time today. You're not worshiping them, you're just giving personality to natural events. It's like saying the streets raised me. That doesn't mean that the sidewalk was your mama. It's an expression, not theology. So where did all this Eostre hype come from? Well, blame the 1800s. Jacob Grimm, yes, that Jacob Grimm, the fairy tale dude, decided that Bede's Eostre must have had a German cousin named Ostara. But here's the kicker. Grimm literally made her up. He guessed. There's no ancient source mentioning Ostara. No cult, no shrine, just Grimm being Grimm. Then came the internet, and boom, now we got memes that turned into maybe poetic word into a lost goddess of spring with bunnies and brunch. So I'm going to say it again. I would say for the last time, but that would be a lie. Easter did not borrow from paganism. All right. The resurrection of Jesus was being celebrated in the 2nd century AD, over 400 years before Christianity even reached Anglo-Saxon England, where Bede wrote about Eostre. One more time, even if Bede was right and Eostre did exist, Jesus was already being celebrated in the 2nd century AD, over 400 years before Christianity even reached Anglo-Saxon England, where Bede wrote about Eostre. So the real roots of Easter, in Hebrew, it would be the word Pesach. In Greek and Latin, it would be the word Pascha. Almost every language on earth calls Easter something based upon Passover. Only English and German use Easter and Ostern. And even those come from sunrise related words, not paganism. So don't fall for the okey doke. Don't fall for the folklore. Eostre isn't the mother of Easter. She's a footnote, not a foundation. A maybe myth with no manuscript trail. Easter isn't about a spring goddess. It's about the Son of God rising at dawn once for all time. And that is something worth celebrating.